All right. Good evening, ladies. On We're about to end. It's like I promised to do this on Wednesday, but technically it's Thursday. But I told you I'm new at this YouTube thing. I still got stuff going on in my life, but I am making this all about you. So let's get started. How you doing? My name is Malcolm Sneed. I'm the above average black man. Now, I made myself promise that I wasn't going to be like on all the other channels that like to talk about women and female behavior and make that 90% of my content. I'm not going to talk about you for 24 hours a day or just on this day period. So, this is the first day of it. Now, I thought about what can I talk about? What can I bring up that would be impactful, or at least interesting enough to where you can listen to what I have to say. And it took me a while, a lot of hemming and hawing. Don't want to talk about female nature, female behavior. Don't want to talk about how, talk about single mothers or whatever. And no, one, I don't have a whole lot of information. Most of the information is other people's opinion or reactionary videos to certain female behavior that is not so pleasant. No, I want to talk about a concept that's been brought up a lot in the past 2 years and not as much in the last 6 months. That is standards, boundaries, and expectations. But I also like to add two more to that list: prioritization and reciprocation. Now, in the past, like I say, the past 3 to 4 years, when it was brought up, when I heard it coming from the female sector of YouTube, I noticed a very big discrepancy. When y'all were talking about standards, it sounded more like expectations. And that always really confused me. Like, but standards are what you hold yourself accountable for. You don't hold people to a standard that you're not upholding, that you're not presenting. You hold people to a standard that you're showing yourself. In other words, that is what you're bringing. This is the standard I hold myself to, and thus expect other people to be there. And if they're not, then they cannot have my time. But what I've been hearing is that y'all are confusing or misusing the word standards and supplementing that for expectations. Here's a definition. And there are many, but the definition for standards that we're using is principles of conduct informed by notions of honor and decency. A principle of conduct. That's a standard, a principle of conduct. And every single time I was listening in the female sector, the last 3 to 4 years, it was more of an expectation. Here we go. Expected value. Believe someone will or should achieve something. A strong belief something will happen or be the case in the future. There's other definitions. But the one that makes the most sense is expected value. You expect it to be valued as such. That is your standard. That's why you guys were saying, oh, I need 4 or 5 star restaurants. Example, Roof Chris. It's like, if you're in my presence, you should automatically be handing me money because because you want my time. If we're going out on a date, you should pay for all of my expenses. Now, if you saw my second video, my first real video yesterday, when I talked about I do believe men should pay for dates. No, actually, no. I didn't talk about that. I didn't talk about that. I did not talk about that at all. But I will give you a sample of it now. I do believe men should pay for dates. I do think men should plan dates. I do. That doesn't mean you get to dictate what the date consists of. The only thing you get to have any control over is whether you accept the date or not. That is all. And if you do accept the date and he sets a time and place, please respect that man's time and be ready. Don't give him no hemming and hawing about, oh, it takes me this amount of time to get myself ready and I had to pay for all of this. No. You expect a pleasant experience. We expect a pleasant date. If we're putting effort into bringing you an experience, showing up decently is the least you can do. And if you don't like it, or if you do like it, please, the least you can do is express your opinion in a calm, courteous manner. That's it. You don't have to go overboard. You don't have to make a TikTok about how it was the worst date of all. Note that the man is making the effort to bring you an experience. Not the experience you want, even though you could throw out suggestions. Doesn't necessarily mean he has to accept them. But if it's in his realm of budget, if it's realm of finances, then there's no problem. But you don't get to dictate how a man takes you out on a date. If he's planning it and using his resources and he's using his time to bring you an experience to get to know you, you don't get to dictate that. You just get to either accept or decline. And you can be very courteous and calm and kind about it if it just doesn't suit you. That's the least an expectation that he can only ask for. That's it. But getting back to the main thing, y'all have been using standard completely incorrectly. Like I said, I don't have a problem with a woman with standards, but y'all are not setting standards. Y'all are setting expectations and expecting men who you say you want to date you to follow those expectations, which doesn't absolutely make any sense at all. Standards is a principle. It's an honor code. It's a code of conduct of how you hold yourself accountable to your actions and behaviors. I'll give you an example. For all my anime heads, Rock Lee is the biggest example. Might Guy and Rock Lee are the two biggest examples of someone having a standard for themselves, a code of conduct. What do I mean? There was a scene in one of their filler episodes where every single time, and this is two separate episodes that had the same theme. Every single time Might Guy would challenge Kakashi to a fight, and every single time he would lose. And I'm not saying he lost every single time. Well, I'm saying every single time that he would lose, he would train harder the next time and then go back and challenge Kakashi to another fight or another duel or a race. And he would win. But what he didn't do to uphold his standard was cut back on his training. If he won, he would even train harder because of his excitement. Because then he would come back again and go after Kakashi again. When he was training his number one disciple, Rock Lee, if at any time Rock Lee couldn't complete a task, he would double up on that same task. If I don't do 100 punches, I'll do 1,000 punches. If I don't do 100 push-ups, I'll do 1,000 push-ups. He had a standard for himself, his code of honor. He didn't have an expectation that he would just be strong and call that his standard. Oh, I am just expected to be this good. And the next day, I expect to be better than the next. No, his standard was, every day I'm going to train harder than the next day to be the best. That was his standard. It wasn't an expectation. The expectation is he would get a little stronger the following day. I don't understand. What? I don't understand how that got confused. I really don't understand how that got confused. I mean, I could blame Sprinkle. I could blame Cynthia G or all these other black female influencers. Hell, female influencers in general. I've seen enough videos coming off of TikTok. I've seen enough reaction videos of men reacting to these videos of these weird expectations. But I can only conclude that you guys did not do the research, or at least review the definition. Because listening to these expectations that you're supposed to have of what men are supposed to do for you was oh so good. And that's very problematic. The next thing I want to talk about is boundaries. And whoo boy, boundaries on both sides of the map are just off the rails. Now, for men, it's very simple, and I'm going to detail when I talk back to the men tomorrow when it comes to boundaries to them. And that's really actually setting boundaries. Setting actual meaningful boundaries. That means understanding oneself. But that's for a video for them. For y'all, your boundaries come in very, very early. And then until something happens to you, that's when you really set your boundaries. And this is when your triggers go completely red alert. When you're young as a little girl, a lot, parents, brothers, cousins, aunties, uncles, were always telling you to set boundaries. Don't let these little boys be messing with you or looking up your skirt. Don't be all nice to these old men, or look out for strangers. Look out for strangers. Pay attention. Don't go outside after night. Like, y'all had a lot of boundaries. A lot of boundaries. Some of y'all didn't have any boundaries. And that, I have to put that on the parents. When you're younger and your parents doesn't set boundaries for you and just let you do whatever you want when you're younger, that can lead to a lot of dangerous situations. And as a parent, it is very, very, very difficult sometimes to hold these boundaries because you think you're limiting your child's autonomy while trying to keep them safe. But at other times, it is very, very sad to see those who have proprietary guardianship of you not respect that position and just let you do whatever you want. Because you guys are just innocent, so everything is new. And if there's not limits set on you when you're young, that way you can gradually grow into them, then you're just going to think this is normal. It's not normal to have boundaries or to have someone set boundaries for you. It's not. It's called parental protection. Yes, can that go overboard? Hell yes. That's also called mental disorder. But a healthy boundaries brings healthy growth. But I digress. Y'all don't set realistic boundaries until y'all go into trauma. And then you guys set incredible boundaries. Hoops. It's like flaming hoops, high wall towers. It's not even an obstacle course. It's a death race. It's like the movie Maze Runner. Okay? It's like the Maze Runner series. It's Hunger Games. When you guys get done wrong, you set ridiculous boundaries. and try to and suss out any red flag you can, even if it's the smallest one. Hold up. Does he giggle when he laughs? Yeah, red flag, red flag. I dealt with a dude who giggled way too much and it traumatized me. I thought he was a joker. Like, no, no. You should always have healthy boundaries. But just like the men, you need to know yourself well enough. That includes all your past experiences, all your new experiences, the standard you set for yourself, and what you plan to do in the future. And what are your plans in the future? It takes a while to actually understand your triggers, which you can set your boundaries on, and not every red flag is something to be scared of. We're not perfect beings. We're going to have quirks. We're going to have we're going to have pieces of ourselves that either we don't want to show or we don't know. And we have to grow into knowing ourselves. But again, not every red flag is something to run from. It's something to be understood, yes, and then analyze and see if it can be mitigated. Life is about managing risk and reward, cost, consequences, and congratulations. You have to. It's risk management. Life is about risk management, and not everything is something to be scared of. Even if you're done wrong, you have to reassess. You can be more cautious about certain things. You can be more cautious, like I said, be more cautious about certain things. You can analyze certain situations. Sometimes you can just step back. It's okay to just walk away and just like, no, um, I'm gonna take a few steps back, but before I jump right in, it is perfectly fine. But having crazy boundaries and expecting other people to give you grace and empathy for it is insane. And nobody is going to deal with people long enough for them to be. Uh, no one's going to deal with that. No one's going to deal with that for long. That is that is true. And trust me, the greatest patience in the world is coming from the Most High Yah. Most humans don't have that. Most humans don't have. After a while, we're going to have to move on. We can't keep scaling walls and you keep adding bricks. We can't keep jumping hoops if you just keep lighting more of them on fire. After a while, we're just gonna take our ball and go home. So I've already speaked on expectations, so I'm not gonna jump on into that. But I'm not saying having expectations is bad. What I'm saying is they have to be reasonable. Expectations for one another have to be reasonable. Having them is not the problem. Not being able to fulfill them or wanting to fulfill them is is. It just is. If they're not the least bit reasonable, then why even bother? And that's the truth. Now, the next thing I bring up is prioritization, being a priority. The definition of a priority is a thing that is regarded as more important than another. So, why am I bringing this up? Most of y'all, most of you women, want to be a priority in a man's life. That's to be expected. That is a reasonable expectation. It's not reasonable for you not to prioritize the man that you want in your life. If he's making you a priority in his life, making time for you, then you damn sure better be making time for them. Setting a healthy standard, having healthy boundaries, having reasonable expectations, that should allow you to actually add another priority, making the man that you want or significant other a priority in your life, and not oversaying saying you were the most important thing. he doesn't need to know. I won't say he doesn't need to know. He can know that all the baggage you have in your life, regardless, single mom, working woman, whatever it is, he could have made you a priority in his life, but it's not going to last in their life. In their life. But it's not going to last if you don't make them a priority in your life. It never will, and it never has. Hell, that was a problem in my relationship. My relationship failed because we failed to prioritize. I know I did. And it wasn't like I didn't try. I prioritized how she felt. If she said she felt tired, I left her alone. I made sure the kids didn't bother her. I would come in and check on her. You know, I would try to get things done around the house, or at least keep the kids quiet enough so she can wake up and so she can wake up easy. You know, I didn't try to bug her about it. I tried to bring up certain concerns, yes, but I tried not to bug her. But as time went on, that became routine, and so, as they say, familiarity breeds contempt. Nothing changed. When I wanted to take her out and everything, or I had the money, or I had established that I wanted to take her out, I had to pay bills. Or if that was something she wanted, I would spend my money on her. Couldn't keep $1 in my pocket because I was trying to prioritize her. It got annoying after a while, but it is what it is. Did it work out? No. No. I fucked up somewhere. I'll reveal it later in later videos. But I fucked up somewhere. I allowed too much to happen, and it fell apart. And that's the truth. But I don't think I failed in trying to prioritize her wants and needs. I just shouldn't have allowed so much to go on. But the same thing with her. When she prioritized my wants and needs, she went out of her way. She went out of her way to actually make me number one. And that's not a bad thing. But again, we had our issues. Again, going into prioritization leads to the final concept: reciprocation. This is the one thing that I think a lot of men have come to realize, that sometimes they're not getting the reciprocation that they want. And for a lot of you females, y'all were in relationships with the guy that you like, where you did so much. You made them the main priority, and you weren't getting the reciprocation that you needed. Hell, the reciprocation that you wanted, because you made them the priority and they didn't make you the priority. And like I said, making someone a priority in your life is not a problem. It's not the problem. It's making them the main priority. That's the problem. Reciprocation, the act of responding to an action in similar way. So basically, if you got guys tripping over hand and foot of you to literally make you a priority in their life, it would be an expectation that you would see them and reciprocate, see them and their actions, and reciprocate in kind, especially if they're making you a priority. A lot of times when I'm watching these videos of y'all and everything, all you're talking about is gimme, mine. Y'all keep talking about, when you're in a relationship, of what he does for you, what they do for you, how they're always buying you stuff that in the next year or so becomes irrelevant. And a lot of guys find that very offensive. Let's just be quite honest. And you can call them sassy, you can call them sweet, you can call them soft, but guess what? You won't be calling them anymore because they're not going to be there, because you're not reciprocating. And that's a real big problem. And that is a real big problem that most men are now realizing is an issue. So when y'all having these conversations and you're thinking, oh, they're just like, oh, why aren't they pursuing me? Oh, they want us to pursue them and whatnot. And in another video, I'm going to explain that part. But what when y'all say that, y'all are disregarding the man's feelings. Y'all constantly want to talk about why aren't these men emotionally intelligent? Emotionally intelligence is communication. So if we're communicating to you and you're disregarding what we're saying, our feelings, our thoughts and emotions, then there's no point about being emotionally intelligent. It's just one is just maturity, being mature enough to actually communicate and express how we feel. But if you're disregarding that and being resentful for someone who wants reciprocation, that's just wrong. That's just completely and utterly wrong. And I'm just being really simple on this. And that's why on my first video for Women's Wednesday of the above average black man channel, is that I want to talk about these standards, boundaries, expectations, prioritization, and reciprocation. We all want the same thing, but we all need to be respectful and reciprocate in kind when people are being kind and considerate for us. That's just it. I will not tell a woman that having standards, boundaries, and expectations is wrong. But when you confuse your expectations for your standards and your boundaries are just misplaced triggers, then we have a problem. If you don't believe that you should prioritize a man who's showing you kindness and affection and you don't believe you should reciprocate, that is a problem. You want reciprocation for your kindness and consideration. I'm with you. You should get that. But we do too. I want you to have standards, a code of conduct that men can admire. I want healthy boundaries so it'd be easier us to get to know you and know where you stand. And expectations should be reasonable for them to be attainable. Y'all can have all the standards and boundaries and expectations you want. But if they're not reasonable or at very least negotiable, then I would just say, hey, enjoy your life as it is. Y'all have a blessed day and take care. Good night.